All right, good morning. It's going to be a great day. Looking forward to everything that's going on. I hope you are as well. Had a great afternoon yesterday. Hung out with a good friend of mine. Just talked about life and dreamt a little bit about some things and caught up and came home and did a little tedious work of just uploading Sunday's messages into kind of a packaged format that's on my YouTube page. And so finished that up and hung out with the Tamster. So it was a great evening. Love those kind of times. And so today I'm ready to rock and roll. Hope you are. Man, we are in the book of Acts. I'm absolutely loving. I think I tell you this all the time, right? But I mean, I'm just absolutely loving what God is teaching me through the book of Acts. And I mean, I've got a whole set of notes that are in addition to anything that I've shared with you guys because they're more pertinent to like my situation of what's going on and where I want to be and who I want to be. It's kind of journaling, I guess, but it's been amazing walking through this. So just to kind of put you in perspective, we are in Acts chapter 24, and Paul is on his last leg, so to speak. Now, he's not near done yet. He's got 2 years he's going to spend where we find him in a minute. And so we'll see what develops. But you remember, Paul, man, was on a tear to present the Messiah to the world, to explain that Jesus was the Christ. And so he's taking that message to the Gentiles. He's preaching it anywhere he can. And he knows there's some tension between the religious Jews and the sect, the cult, whatever you want to call it, the way, Christ followers, Christians, that group. There's some tension there. And but as far as that, and then there's another between the inside that circle of the sect, there are Gentiles and there are Jews. And so the Jews are still having a hard time from a cultural perspective to think that the Gentiles in any way should be a part of that. And so there's just this racial, and I mean that not in a black-white, but in a Jewish, non-Jewish perspective. There's this racial strife that's going on. So it's very much a hotbed of issues. Paul wanting to help the Jerusalem church to get back to Jerusalem, to be seen as not an outlier, but mainstream truth of a Messiah. In other words, he has taken the Jewish faith and gone full 100% into it. The Jews got to a point where they had forgotten about the hope of the Jew, which is the Messiah. And they've gotten busy in their entrenched law and in their temples and in all of the ritual that goes with it, so much so that they don't really speak about a Messiah coming anymore. And only in theory. And Paul's like, bro, you missed it. He's here. He came and he left and he's coming back. And so we should be anticipating that. It was a foreign message to them. And so in the middle of that, he takes up money from the Gentile churches and some of the Jews as well, and he's bringing it back to Jerusalem to give a report to James, the pastor of the church in Jerusalem, and the elders of what God has done in those years of ministry that Paul was away, three and a half years that he was away from them. He comes home to say, let me tell you what God is up to. And so they're like, hey, that's great. We got a problem, right? You're in town. Everybody knows what you've been doing. And so I need you to make nice, and I need you to show the Jews here in Jerusalem that you're not anti-Moses and that you're not against the law. And so they had him do a Nazirite vow, take 4 men with him, pay to have their heads shaved, do your homage of 7 days, and then go see the priest. And so he was doing that. And so he finds himself in the temple doing just exactly what they recommended because he wholeheartedly thought it would be good because he's got nothing against that. He's not against the law. He sees that the law was insufficient and that it was Christ who gave us the ability to be made right. So he's there. He gets arrested, and you know the story, right? They're beating him up because he's caused trouble everywhere. They So the commander, Claudius, comes down to see what the ruckus is about at the temple. He and his men grab Paul, began to take him up to the barracks just to get him out of the situation, find out what's going on. They won't leave him alone, the Jews. He gets to the top of the stairs, asks Claudius, "Hey, can I speak to the crowd?" And Claudius is like, "Whoa, you're speaking Greek to me?" He said, "Yeah, man. I'm from Cilicia. It's a prominent city." So he turns around, speaks to the crowd. They get agitated even more when he comes to the place that God had. He told his testimony, nothing but truth, and how God was sending him to the Gentiles. They wanted nothing to do with it. Went crazy again. So Claudius is going to beat him, realizes he's a Roman citizen, kind of freaks out, has a tribunal, gets all of the Sanhedrin, all of the Jewish, the Supreme Court, the high priest, all of them are together, sitting, and they bring in Paul, and he makes his case. And again, it didn't go well. They've decided they want to kill him, so they're making a bribe, and Claudius says, "Let's just get him out of here." 470 soldiers it took just to make sure he got to Caesarea, and said, "I'm going to let Felix handle the matter." That's where we pick up the story. Paul is now, having had that honorable guard get him there, he's now living in the palace of the king, and so this is where we pick up the story. So chapter 24, verse 1. 5 days later, Ananias, the high priest, came down with some elders and a lawyer named Tertullus. These men presented their case against Paul to the governor. When Paul was called in, Tertullus began to accuse him and said, "We enjoy great peace because of you, and reforms are taking place for the benefit of this nation because of your foresight. We acknowledge this in every way and everywhere, most excellent Felix, with utmost gratitude. But so that we will not be a burden to you any further, I request that you would be kind enough to give us a briefing, for we have found this man to be a plague, an agitator among all the Jews throughout the Roman world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes." So let's just kind of walk through this and see, because there's an underlying thread here. We saw yesterday the providence of God, even when you can't see him, much like the book of Esther, much like what's happening in the life of Joseph. You see God working behind the scenes to accomplish his plan, right? And it weaves and bobs, and it looks like it's just a suspenseful drama, because you think, man, Joseph's going to end his life here. He's going to go into prison. Then he comes out, and he's just weaving in and out of all these things. His brother sold him in a pit. You think that's the end of him? He's sold into slavery. He rises in Potiphar's house, thrown into prison. He does some good stuff. They forget about him and leave him in prison, right? And so you see that story until ultimately he accomplishes the purposes God had for him. Esther was the same way. She was a reluctant contestant in this beauty pageant that the king had, looking for a wife. And Mordecai's like, man, this is our time, because here's what's going on. And so you see the hand of God woven all the way through that, so that ultimately the Jews survive what was going to be a Holocaust and a movement of extinction of the Jews. So we see the same thing happening here. Jesus has showed up in Paul's room and said, "Hey, man, I'm going to encourage you, and I want you to know that what you just did here, kudos on that. I want you to do this. I want you to give that same testimony in Rome." And so this is how Paul is going to end up in Rome. So he's in Caesarea, which is kind of a mini Rome, an outpost of Rome in that region on the Mediterranean Sea. And so here's where he is. This is a story of a righteous man pitted against two corrupt entities. And I think it's important that we see this. There's the religious leadership, Ananias, the Sanhedrin, and this lawyer, which we tend to think of as sleazy kind of things anyway when we think of lawyers. And not true, but there's that concept that that's who they are. Now, all of these we know to be corrupt. They've already tried to plot to kill Paul. They have already spun lies about him. This is corrupt leadership. This is what this is. This is the church, to use our vernacular, corrupt church. And they're seeking to undermine everything that God is seeking to do. And then there's the political leadership. There's Felix, who's not a great man. If you're in politics in Rome, it's all about you, padding your pocket, getting some cash, living the life of luxury. He had stolen a man's wife. If you study history about Felix, a pedophile in some sense, not in that culture, but it was a 15-year-old that he married. And anyway, there's no real noble works that Felix is said to have done. You go through history, and it's just it's a void there. You see a little bit, but not much. This is who he is. So here he is listening to this. Now, because he's a Roman, he's well educated, and he is aware of this sect of the way. He's aware of that there are those, because you just love to have conversation with people. So he's aware of all the tidbits of information, just like you and I. We have conversation with people. We can speak about a little bit of everything because we've heard just enough, right? That's kind of Felix. Here he is. This is the setting. Let's read. So the council has been convened. It's Paul, Felix, Ananias, the Sanhedrin, for the most part, maybe not in total, but a representative group of the Sanhedrin, which is the Jewish legal Supreme Court, if you will. And then there's this lawyer, Tertullus. Now, so here's where they are, and this is their accusations. He is a pest and a plague on society. Okay, well, last I checked, that's not a crime. But listen to what he says. Now, after they buttered him up, right? After they go, "Oh, Felix, you're a great man. Wow, we are just so honored," right? Just like every other sleazebag lawyer would do. "We acknowledge this in every way, most excellent Felix, with utmost gratitude. But so that I will not be a burden to you any further." He's trying to play the high road now. "Look, I'm here, man. You are the man, and we recognize you're a busy man. We apologize that we even have to be here. But this sleazebag Paul, it forces us to do this. And so just indulge us for a minute," right? You feel the play that's going on there? And then he says this, "But so that we will not be a burden to you any further," verse 4, "I request that you would be kind enough to give us a brief hearing. For we have found this man to be a plague," that is a pest, a pestilence, a nuisance, something that just slowly eats away at everything that we care about. And so that's how they want to phrase Paul. He's just this little pest, man. He's not really anything big, but he just won't go away. He's a nuisance. And so they say this is who he is. He's an agitator among the Jews throughout the Roman world. Now, agitator is actually the term for insurrectionist. Now, we've heard that a lot in our culture today because that was what happened supposedly in January 6th, this big insurrection and all of that. It's a term that strikes fear because it sounds like somebody's getting ready to turn our world upside down, right? An insurrection means what we believe is to be stable, a government, even if we don't like it. We're not sure. We just want somebody to blow it up and all of a sudden start over. So you use the word insurrection. It's meant to incite great fear that's going on. And because he added the word Rome to it, right? "For this man is to be found a plague and an insurrectionist among the Jews throughout the Roman world." You know what they're trying to say? He's stirring up people to overthrow Rome. Now that gets Felix's attention. Pax Romana, right? The peace of Rome. Well, that didn't mean anything other than that the great leaders of Rome would have peace. It meant terrible slavery to everyone else. Rome was never the greatness of what it was. Sure, it had great highways and roads and buildings and benefits for the people, but it was at great cost to the people, their freedom, basically. But when you start talking about insurrectionists and an upheaval in Rome, Felix knows if that happens on my watch, Caesar will have me killed. So they're trying to play him to go, hey, it'd be in your best interest to get rid of this guy too. That's the thing that's going on. Now, and then it says, for we found this man, an agitator among the Jews throughout the Roman world, and a ringleader of this sect of the Nazarenes. Now, a sect means, we use the word cult. It's really, and they use the term Nazarene because it's a minor town. Nazarene came from the fact that that's where Jesus was born, Nazareth, so he was a Nazarene. It's known as Christians. Sect literally means an opinion outside the norm. So it's just like, hey, they're not in alliance with everything we want, right? Isn't that what the whole world wants? You got to line up with the Republican Party. You got to line up with the Democrat Party. You got to line up with the evangelicals. You got to line up with the deconstructionists. It's just like everybody wants to put us in these little categories. And if you don't fit in one of those categories, they all hate you. And so this is what's going on here. And so that's his crime. And the last one was that he had desecrated the temple. He even tried to desecrate the temple. Now, the temple, even Rome had conceded that the temple was a big deal. And if you were desecrating the temple, there was a crime. I mean, they would destroy you for that. Rome would allow you to die because of that. And so they throw that in there to say, hey man, this is a big deal, man. He's trying to desecrate the temple. Well, what they said was he brought a Gentile in there. Remember that? But he never brought a Gentile in there. They assumed he did. So these were the crimes. You know what his real crime was? Preaching truth that they didn't want to hear. That's the crime. He's preaching a Messiah that they don't want to acknowledge because it'll mess up. They no longer want a Messiah. Do you hear Jews talking about a Messiah today? No, because it's not important to them anymore. It's about their culture. It's about their system. They've gotten settled in this religiosity, and no longer is it about the hope of a Messiah coming. And so this is what's going on. Now, just a reality check for all of us. Satan hates every human authority. He thrives on chaos. He hates everybody, right? God's not on Satan's not on the side of the Republicans, or Satan's not on the side of the Democrats, or Satan's not on the side of the evangelicals. Listen, he just wants chaos. He'll do whatever he can. He wants to present the church as corrupt, rebellious insurrectionists. That's kind of what's going on. Listen, the church, the distinction of the church is not about, we have made it in America about worship, about buildings, about prominent, important speakers, and about acts of service that make us feel good. And if that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, but that really is and every church, it's not about size. This isn't a slam on mega churches. This is what the church has become known for. And so the world hates the church. And the evangelicals have done a good job of that. Listen, we understand that spiritual leaders have moral failings. They do that. But when you ignore those moral failings or you sweep them under the rug, hence what we see happening with Hillsong, what we see happening in so many other areas, or you paint them as these hypocritical, money-grubbing people like a Joel Osteen and all the other prosperity doctrine people, what you get is a fake view of what Christianity is. And they tarnish your reputation if you're a true Christ follower, and mine, who want to be about the things that God wants us to be about, which is love and truth. That's really it. Love and truth. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? That's the 10 Commandments. Worship God with all your heart. How do we know we're worshiping God with all our heart? Because how we treat our neighbor, right? That's what matters. And to be truth people, right? To be holy, not worship wealth and tolerance, which is the other extreme. The deconstructionists tolerate every sin. Satan wants us to go in all of those directions, just not where we are. This is the same thing happening here. Man, the Jews are crazy. The Jews know how to get along with those who believe in the resurrection and those who don't. They're strange bedfellows, but the Pharisees and the Sadducees don't agree on a big deal. But they're in bed together because they all are about corruption in that sense. And same thing in government and all of that. There's no government that's on your side. There really isn't. And so we just need to understand that. Now, so Claudius had already told him there was no wrongdoing. So listen to what he says. By examining him yourself, verse 6, you will be able to discern the truth about these charges we are bringing against him. The Jews also joined in the attack, alleging that these things were true. So then whatever audience was there go, we believe it too, right? And so you got this mob riot kind of clamoring outside. Then verse 10, when the governor motioned for him to speak, Paul replied, because I know you have been a judge of this nation for many years, I'm glad to offer my defense in what concerns me. You know what you didn't hear there? Paul sucking up, right? Oh, hey, Felix, man, no, he just, hey, I know you've been a judge a long time, so I'm grateful to be here, right? I love, there's no, hey, honor, it's just, hey, no dishonor. He's just simply stating facts because he's a man of truth. You see, he's cutting clear through everything else. Now, he says, with no lawyer, and no crowd, just truth. This is what he says, and this is as far as we'll get today. When the governor motioned for him to speak, Paul replied, "Because I know you've been a judge of this nation for many years, I'm glad to offer my defense in what concerns me." You can verify yourself. There's no more than 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem in the temple. I didn't have time to create an insurrection. I didn't have time to do anything. I was only there about 5 days before you guys drugged me here. So it's not like I've been there a long time. They didn't find me arguing with anyone or causing a disturbance among the crowd. I'm not the one who created the disturbance. They did. That one maniac went crazy, started yelling, got the mob together, and everybody just started beating on me. I didn't do anything. They didn't find me arguing with anyone or causing a disturbance among the crowd, either in the temple or in the synagogues or anywhere in the city. Nowhere did they find that. Neither can they prove the charges they're now making against me. But I admit this to you, I worship the God of my ancestors according to the way, which they call a sect, believing everything that is in accordance with the law and written in the prophets. I'm not an insurrectionist. I believe everything the law and the prophet said, not one jot and tittle I disagree with. I'm in favor of it all. I have a hope in God, which these men accept, that there will be a resurrection, both the righteous and the unrighteous. I always strive to have a clear conscience toward God and man. And my conscience is clear, man. I've not done anything wrong. After many years, I came to bring charitable gifts and offerings to my people. I came up for one good reason, to bring gifts to the people that are here now that are wanting to accuse me of wrongdoing. While I was doing this, some Jews from Asia found me ritually purified in the temple, and without a crowd and without any uproar. It is they who ought to be here before you to bring charges if they have anything against me. Or let these men here state what wrongdoing they found in me when I stood before the Sanhedrin. Other than this one statement I shouted while standing among them, today I am on trial before you concerning the resurrection of the dead. That's going to be the topic we're going to look at tomorrow. What is the resurrection of the dead? And I'm glad we get to talk about it during this resurrection week that we know as Holy Week. And man, the Lord bless you. Kept you a little longer than normal. Can't wait to share more with you in the morning.